The IRS, I only want to spend 10 minutes on this one. The IRS is considering removing Harvard's tax-exempt status. So Trump warned about this. Trump said that, hey, listen, guys, if y'all don't want to comply, we're going to remove funding and we're going to start scaling back all of the billions of dollars that we got allocated over to Harvard, and it's a private college anyway. Because we shouldn't be giving all of our taxpayer dollars to you guys if you guys don't want to comply. Then if you want to become indoctrination camps instead of higher education learning. And he also suggested that their tax-exempt status be removed. Now, it seems as though it is actually seemingly coming to fruition. Here's the latest of what's going on with Harvard, and they're trying to get other universities to join in their fight against Trump. But this is what's happening with Harvard and possibly losing their tax-exempt status.
The federal government says it's freezing billions of dollars in grants and contracts to Harvard. It comes after the university said it would defy the Trump administration's demands to limit activism on campus. Nearly $9 billion in federal funding is at stake, but the university is vowing not to surrender to what it's calling a government takeover. ABC News chief national correspondent Matt Gutman has the latest.
The Trump administration freezing more than $2 billion in federal grant money after Harvard University rejected a list of government demands, including overhauling hiring and admissions practices. Harvard, America's wealthiest university, not backing down in the face of pressure from President Trump, who was threatening to pull roughly $9 billion in federal aid unless the school makes a slew of changes to the way it's run. The administration ordering the school to report foreign students who commit conduct violations to federal authorities, submit to an audit to ensure academic departments have diverse viewpoints, and all DEI programs share hiring data with the administration, and submit to an audit of admissions data.
They say that Harvard has, I believe, a $59 billion endowment. Let me double check that just for the sake of conversation, because I want to make sure that we're presenting right information. I'm hearing that Harvard has a $59 billion endowment. Let me look that up.
The administration also calling for the correction of what it calls anti-Semitism on campus, an issue which Harvard says it has already taken steps to address. But in a scathing letter, the university's president blasting the administration for what he says is a violation of Harvard's First Amendment rights, writing, "No government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue." This is hundreds of demonstrators gathered in Cambridge over the weekend, protesting the administration's arrests and detainments of international students.
What the university has said is, we're going to stand on our principle and our legal rights.
The school's defiance coming as President Trump squeezes Ivy League universities, some like New York's Columbia University.
All right, so let me pull this up for you guys. This is what I'm seeing on the intranet. Harvard University's endowment was valued at $53.2 billion in 2024, the largest endowment among U.S. universities. The endowment grew by $2.5 billion from the previous fiscal year, driven by a 9.6% return on investments. So basically, this is money that is invested that makes money for the university that continues to bolster what its finances look like. So that $53.2 billion, I'm assuming, is managed by and has a lot of things happening and playing out. Also, on top of that, it says Harvard has a massive endowment, unlike many colleges. So Harvard is largely considered to be one of the richest universities in the United States of America. It says it is funded in part by an endowment. Harvard is. The endowment includes thousands of philanthropic gifts donated since Harvard's early history, many of which were given to support specific aspects of Harvard's teaching and research work. Together, these gifts, and this is obviously on Harvard's website, together these gifts form a permanent source of funding that connects scholars and learners from many diverse backgrounds with opportunities at Harvard now and into the future. The university's annual operating expenses in 2024 was $6.4 billion. This is a small city. 14,600 different funds make up Harvard's endowment. $749 million in grants and granted in financial aid and scholarships in 2024. So the endowment helps the students to keep down tuition and gives grants and financial aid. 70% of the endowment's annual distribution is donor directed to specific programs, departments, and purposes. And $53.2 billion is aside of Harvard University's endowment in the 2024 fiscal year. So all of this information is directly on Harvard's website, as well as the annual financial report, just for the people that may be interested, so that we can speak in truth and we're not speaking in theory. So they have roughly $53 billion in endowment money,
conceding to a list of demands after hundreds of millions of dollars in aid was paused.
Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman, thank you so much. And I want to bring in EdTrust Senior Vice President Will Del Pilar for more. So how significant is it for Harvard to defy the Trump administration on this?
I mean, I think it's a huge step. I would say nationally, you didn't see anyone standing up to this administration. What we saw were associations come forward and issue or engage in legal challenges to some of the demands that the administration was making, but we didn't see a single institution stand up for their rights and for their independence and for their academic freedoms. And so I think nationally, this is a huge step to see an institution with the wherewithal and resources to stand up and fight back. I think it's a huge step.
I mean, more than $2 billion in federal funding is now frozen. There's $9 billion on the line here. President Trump is calling for Harvard to lose their tax-exempt status. So what would losing this money actually mean for Harvard?
I mean, I think in the long run, it would have an impact on the institution, but this is an institution with an endowment that's worth billions of dollars. And so given the size of the endowment, I think that Harvard putting their stake in the sand at this point, I think it comes with some financial risk to them. But I do think that they're one of the few institutions in the United States that could stand up and has the resources to combat the federal government and the administration.
Harvard's not the only one that gets criticized on this, but a lot of US higher education institutions, actually it goes for lots of parts of Europe as well, get criticized. They've not got enough conservatives on campus. They're too left-leaning. I mean, is that a fair argument?
I'd love to see evidence on this. I think that, we're claiming this based on
What? Did you just hear what he said? Wait. You need evidence that our institutions and universities, especially the ones that are in the most liberal places in the United States of America, are more left-leaning than it is right-leaning, and they don't promote diversity of thought. They actually limit the amount of conservative views that are on campus, especially outwardly. What? Come on, now we just being disingenuous, family.
Position, and has anyone taken a poll of folks' political leanings on college campuses? I would guess not, but I would say that in my opinion, we know that the faculty tend to be a bit more liberal in terms of their political leanings. But in terms of students, there is no evidence that shows that college students.
A lot of times for teachers, listen, when you go to school to be a teacher, a lot of times, and I'm just going to be absolutely honest with you, those are people that could not hack it in the real world. I believe that most of our teachers need to come from spaces where people actually can use real life, especially when you're talking about on the university level. I think that they need to come from spaces where people were able to actually really able to give you real life experiences. Man, look, the things that I've learned, and I am a college educated man 100%. The things that I've learned personally, and obviously I've never been to Harvard, but I'm just speaking of universities in general. The things that I've learned in the real world, a real world business education by failing. And I'll tell you right now that the people in the Patreon get 10 times better of an education based off of the real life explanations and me showing the numbers and you giving you the receipts and helping you to understand it. Most of the things that you see inside of these universities are being preached as theory. They say it's a fact, but it's really theory, right? Most of the places. Now, I'm not saying at Harvard Business School or The Ross School of Business over at the University of Michigan is not awesome. Those are exceptions, right? And those a lot of times are taught by people that have been successful in the business world. However, I will tell you that the majority of what you learn, both in high school and in college, is all based off of theory because it's coming from people that have never actually done anything in their life. I'd even respect you if you did it and failed, but you can give me the learned experience in addition to whatever it is that they teach you inside of the book. But it's not the same as putting your own money up and doing it in real life. It's not the same as putting your own money up and doing it in real life. They have no real, a lot of these teachers have no real understanding of what it takes to actually build the business or to be successful when it comes to certain engineering fields and all of this other stuff. Now, they may be able to give you more insight with regard to being a physician or going into a doctor's program or something like that because I haven't experienced that. I can't speak to that. I can speak to what I've seen, heard, seeing being communicated and experienced in my own real life and have it as a comparison to what I've learned at major universities. I could have taught the class from some of the elementary stuff that they was talking about. Somebody said, how was high school coming from theory? Well, all right, let me break it down like this. In my high school, which I went to a school that was considered one of the better high schools, you have to maintain a certain GPA. You had to test to get into it. You had to maintain a certain GPA, and it was one of the more esteemed schools inside of Metro Detroit, Cass Technical High School. We had specific curriculums that directed you to do certain things depending on whatever it is that you got into, right? And I've also seen and witnessed, and I speak in high schools, right? I have gone and spoke in plenty of schools throughout the Metro Detroit area, both in the inner city and outside of it. And in the school that I went to in particular, we had specific, computer science. You can specialize in that. You can specialize in business. You can specialize in architecture. I went and specialized in architecture. I took drafting classes. I took all kind of classes that basically prepared me and also gave me college credit before I ever even got into college. And if you go and you evaluate the background of the people that's teaching it or people that are getting degrees so that they can teach, they're not actually experiencing real world situations to where you have to adjust and adapt and see what's going on in this and that, so on and so forth. They don't get to give you that real life knowledge. Now, you may have went to a high school where maybe it was just surface level, base level, or whatever. I went to a high school that specialized in certain things. Nope, not king over Cass, Cass over king. Now, I went to a high school that specialized. And more importantly, in the high schools that I speak at, or I go and teach at, or I go and have conversations because I have friends that say, Anton, I want you to come and speak to these boys. They are not teaching them real life experience. Have you ever took a debate class inside of college or inside of high school, for example? Have you ever been on Rate Your Professor before you took a class in college? I'm telling you, this is a lot of times why they even say, hey, we need more men teaching or we need more people that come in and do this. If I was a teacher, I would have a program personally to where I basically tapped into my network and my friends to come in and speak at different portions of the school year that was tied in with the curriculum that actually gave you a real life worldview experience to where you could see what was going on in the field. And you would be graded by how you adapted and adjusted and what you learned, not necessarily based off of whether or not you can pass a test. That's how I would groom my students for success in the real world. I would teach them how to think their way through it, not necessarily just give them theory or give them a test to pass and say, can you memorize this? I would 100% change my curriculum to be reflective of how well you participated. Whether or not it wouldn't be a failure based off of whether or not you got the answer right. It would be a pass or a fail whether or not you made the adjustment or you then, applied or you participated in all of these things. And I think that would yield phenomenal results. We would actually prepare our children to be financially savvy, to understand. Most people that get into college, that get into a lot of these regular colleges, they can't even think their way out of a wet paper bag. They are not prepared. They are not prepared. I'm telling you that they're not prepared. And the reason, your car, that they got this standardized testing, and I don't know if they're going to lose their tax exempt status or not. The reason that they got this standardized testing is because it's the only way that they can use from the Department of Education to justify whether or not they send in so many funds. Because everything is black and white with the state. Anyways, make sure you hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. They have removed debate classes or groups and from most high schools now. Oh, I attended a magnet high school for business. Nice, Tanya. Somebody said, what am I talking about? Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? What do you mean, what am I talking about? You don't understand what I'm saying? You don't get that we have to actually have applied theory, that we have to give people real life experiences for them to actually go out and see it for themselves, to ask them, hey, what would you do in this scenario? And there is no right or wrong answer. How would you adjust for this circumstance? What happens when this happened? Hey, listen, this is what really happens when you build in a house. This is what really happens when you start to apply it. When you're in the UX UI field, these are what employers are asking for. And so listen, UX UI can be applied to anything that you do in your real life. If you go into a restaurant, the flow of traffic, they're UX UI in it. And that's now how we start to apply that to the things that we design on our applications, on these screens and on these phones and these devices. The reason that they move all of the buttons on Instagram down instead of keeping it as a hamburger menu is because of how you hold your hand and how you hold it in your hand. It's not just about whether or not you can program. You don't understand what I'm saying?